Hey yo guys, what's up and welcome back to Two Toe Tags and Metal Reviews. And today we're getting our first impressions to the brand new album from Bone of Osiris titled Angel or Alien. Alright, Bone of Osiris dropping a new album today, and we're pretty hyped because, well, the last time they dropped some music, we really liked it. They dropped a couple singles we reacted to, White Nile being one of those, and the title track of this album being another one. Both of them were great videos, both of them were great songs. White Nile was better to me than Angel or Alien was, but still both were good, and the hype for the album skyrocketed, so we're both into it right now.
Yeah, hype for an album can be determined by a few different things. Obviously, oh, I like the singles, or oh, I like this band, or they haven't been around for a while, but I think it's a mix. Actually, I don't know about if they haven't been around for a while, because their last album we even checked out on this channel, The Simulation, but I'm a big Bone of Osiris fan, and I love both singles, so my hype is up there for this album.
Yeah, so we're going to check out Angel or Alien for the first time in its entirety, so sit there and wait for our first impressions when we get back. Alright guys, we're back. We just listened to Angel or Alien in its entirety for the first time, and I'm not quite sure exactly how I feel about it. I did like it, I enjoyed myself listening to the album. But like we've mentioned before, when we're listening to these albums, we're taking notes on the songs, and we kind of do give like a kind of a fake rating to each song, just to kind of judge our overall feelings on a first impression. And for me, when I'm rating a song, if I don't quite know how I feel about it, I'm not sure if I like it, if I don't like it, it gets a 5 automatically. I don't try to like really like hone in on my score, it's just a 5. This album got a lot of 5s for me. Half the album got 5s. Which means half the album I'm not quite sure if I like or didn't like. As usual with albums, the first half felt a lot stronger than the second half, but that doesn't mean a lot because fatigue factor and things like that start to set in.
Especially given how long this album is, 55 minutes.
It's pretty long for an album of this caliber, of this genre, whatever, 14 songs. But there's some things I noticed that I thought were kind of interesting, and I could be wrong about some of this analysis. But I'm going to mention a couple things. So, Angel or Alien is track number 3. Truth and Denial is track number 13. For some reason, I was drawing a connection between these songs. So if you think Angel or Alien, so Angel is something that's religious, it's biblical, right? And Alien is obviously science fiction, or maybe science fact, who knows, whatever, right? And then you look at the government and how they treat religion as if it's like, you know, this hard fact, and being religious is part of their core character, and then they'll deny anything that's alien related. I don't know why I drew that connection there, but Angel or Alien and Truth and Denial seem to have that connection. I don't know if it's meant to be that way or if I just kind of made that interpretation, but I still thought it was interesting. Another interesting thing about this album, I'm sure there's a lot of examples that we just didn't notice, but in track number 1, Poster Child, which to me, get this out there, was the weakest track of the album. I did not like this as an intro track, I thought it was very weak. But there's a little bit of a saxophone at the end of the song, which kind of comes out of nowhere, and you're like, oh, cool, some saxophone, why not? But then in the last song in the album, Shadowmourn, you get a full-on saxophone solo. So in a way, you can kind of say that the first song foreshadows the last song, which is something that you get in like a novel, right? So the fact that they wrote this album with that kind of stuff in mind tells me that there's a lot of hidden gems in this album, and that it was very creatively written. The strongest track for me was White Nile. That remains. I love that song when we heard it on when we reacted to it, and that remains. The rest of the songs, kind of all over the place as far as my ratings go, but overall not bad for a first impression.
Yeah, I thought this album was actually solid. Like, just from listening to it once, I thought that this album does a really good job at sounding like Born of Osiris, but new Born of Osiris. It sounds like they're doing something different with some of these songs, and I like that. But there's also so much in this album, because once again, 14 tracks, 55 minutes, that's a lot. So you have tracks like Angel or Alien, you have tracks like Love Story, you have these tracks that are a lot more melodically based and a lot more accessible sounding, but they still sound like this band. It doesn't sound like they're going way too far and sounding completely different. They still have their identity, but it sounds great. Love Story was fine. See, it's interesting you were saying, well, a lot of these are 5s, didn't know what to think. I was giving a good chunk of these tracks as 6s, because I still enjoyed them, but I didn't really find much out of some of them that were like super crazy, but I still thought, yeah, I can dig it, I like this. However, some songs, obviously better than others. My top rated track was the title track. I think that's an incredible, amazing, beautiful song.
It is.
Amazing riffs. Literally everything about this song is just great. I still loved White Nile though. That was my second highest. That one's also a great track. I liked how near the end of the album, you have a trilogy of songs, In for the Kill, You're the Narrative, and Truth or Denial, that are just hard as fuck. And it's interesting because a lot of the rest of the album is a lot more melodically based, a lot more synthesized sounds, but those 3 tracks are a lot more raw, and by raw I mean there isn't as much of the soundscape in there, and they're just a lot heavier, so it's cool that they kind of threw that in there as a little, okay, if you want this, go to this section of the album. Mm-hmm. But even then, I mean, near the end of In for the Kill, you got this like hip-hop beat almost, and that happens a few times on this album, and I do think that's pretty cool and creative.
That is cool, and you know what? There's also elements here that I also enjoyed. Like there's this marriage of melody between the guitars and the synth. The synth takes most of the melody, the lead on most of the melody. I think that's obviously creative choice, but it's different when you hear it so much because you're used to guitars being the melodic element of a song. So the synth being this main melody is cool, but then some songs, like the title track, will have dual melodies going on, like 2 different melodies playing at the same time on top of a rhythm.
Sick.
Really, really cool stuff. Speaking of the rhythm, this album is full of chaotic rhythms, but they still remain grounded. They still remain very headbanger friendly.
All it takes is that right hand.
All it takes is the right hand, exactly. And it's doing that. That feel safe 4/4 groove. And it just feels really good at the same time being quite syncopated. And this is all done through a lot of times very genty styled rhythms.
What they're known for.
What they're known for, yeah, but for some reason it's just something that kind of, like halfway through the album, it kicked into me. Like, this is very genty sounding. So I don't know if they toned down the gent at the beginning or if I didn't just pay attention to that aspect of it. But it kind of just hit me all of a sudden. I was like, wow, this is a lot gentier than I kind of felt like it was before.
I think later on in the album they kind of started to put that more on the forefront than having a more melodic approach. I feel like the first half is a lot more melodic than the second.
I agree. There was even some like EDM style stuff. Like if you listen to songs like number 10, Lost Souls, it starts off kind of EDM. It's got this EDM vibe through it, like EDM metal kind of thing. There's a lot of elements here. You mentioned hip hop. That's definitely true, especially at the end of Crossface. This song is another genty sounding song with some like slap bass. It kind of takes a turn about halfway to 2/3 through, maybe in the second or third act, where it goes into like this almost dreamlike sequence, kind of very soft, dreamy sounding, and then it turns into this hip hop beat, like almost let me hear out of West Coast 90s hip hop with like, you know, a beat playing with a synth over top. Really cool stuff. I'm glad they don't do that through the whole album. They just put it in certain parts here and there. But it just goes to show you the real creativity that goes into making an album like this. There's a lot to unpack. We've been talking about a lot of different things here, and I'm sure we've just scratched the surface.
Yeah, especially with, like, this is one of those albums that has a lot to each song. Like, you listen, you know, once, you don't really get the full picture, which is why we do what we do. But I think it's especially the case with this album, how there's so much in all of these songs, and there's so many songs on top of that. Yeah. So there's just tons and tons and tons of content within this album.
Yeah, there's also, and I'll just add this last thing, I guess, this interesting dichotomy of sounds in songs like Truth and Denial, where you have a very rugged, again, genty style rhythm, but then you have this soft, melodic, synthy melody over top of it. It's like 2 sounds that should not be married together are gelled and working very well. But overall as a song, I'm listening to it like, what is really attracting me to this? Yeah, that's interesting the way they're putting this together, but what is really attracting me to this, I'm not too sure. So the listening sessions throughout the week are going to be interesting for me. I'm going to see how these songs grow on me. If I start, you know, getting bored of them, I don't know. But I think there's a lot here to unpack, and I'm really looking forward to it. So we're going to listen to Angel or Alien as much as we possibly can throughout the entire week. And in a week's time, we'll be back to give you our full and final review of this album, so be sure to come back then. But for now, leave your comments and thoughts down below and let us know what you guys think of this album on your first listen as well. But that's it for this video, guys. So like it if you liked it, subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm Vile Self.
I'm TV Fish.
We'll see you guys in the next one. Keep those heads banging.